What's going on, fam? Welcome to another episode of No Clue the Show, guys. I don't know what your week has been like since we last met, but we're going to talk about what we've been going through. But first, like us on Facebook, share us on Facebook, like us on Instagram, share on Instagram, subscribe on YouTube, share on YouTube, support us on Patreon, and one more, Arteria.
Christian Mingo.
Guys, we do not have Chevette with us this week because someone in her family is getting married. There go my baby.
Hey,
Hey,
Kay!
I'm sorry, you guys. Her name is Flight Attendant K. She's no longer K. She's Flight Attendant K. She
No.
has graduated, completed class, and preparing for her first flight on tomorrow. So proud of you, young lady. So proud of you. So DJ, introduce our guest before we do some catching up.
Yeah, so what's up, fam? Y'all know I must love y'all. I'm out here looking rough and ragged and all of that. I'm not clean and tight like I usually be, but we're going to power through this anyway. I'm super excited to introduce to you all on this evening one of my close friends, the great, the powerful, the mighty, the overzealous, the over adventurous, multifaceted Dr. Maya Green, uh, who will be joining us on this evening. Y'all will get to see how dope she is. You'll get to see all of the insight and influence that she has. Maya has a wealth of information. Maya is actively connected to community and people. Definitely CRT, Black empowerment, people's rights, human empowerment is definitely her niche. So she was the perfect person to come join us on this evening. So I'm super excited to have her. Dr. Green, would you like to say a few words to the people before we?
Hey, community DJ. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for asking me to join. I'm super excited about what we're going to get into. A lot of people call me Dr. Maya 100 because I love keeping it 100 with the community. And I'm just here to chill out with y'all and kick back and discuss things, how they, and what they say, break it down so it can forever be broken. Let's go.
All right. Well, welcome, Dr. Maya 100. Y'all heard that? Dr. Maya 100, only on No Clue. So everybody, how's your weeks? What's new? What's going on? How you doing? How you cheering? How the dog?
I'm good. I'm good. Other than today, this pollen and it's about to take me out.
Sure. Do
About to
you
take
know
me out.
St. Louis got some trees I ain't never heard of, but my sinuses apparently have. You should hear me at night. It's like a Honda trying to crank up, but I gotta be scared myself
I would
sometimes.
be embarrassed to tell people that. But on a good note, on another note, on another note, my little baby's birthday was tomorrow. He's turning one.
Yay! Uncle Boy turning one. I remember when he was born. We get
Don't you
old.
do
Yes.
that.
Wow. I remember the baby, the gender reveal in
Yes,
Savannah. And when he
it
kicked me,
was.
I told him, when you come out here and turn one, I'm tapping that little behind for it.
Yeah,
Yes. Tomorrow is the day. Yeah.
Whatever.
Ah,
Whatever.
DJ,
We'll
how's
get
your
ready
week?
for that because we about to party. Got some nails.
Come on, Nails.
Off baseball. I almost said football. Lord have mercy. DJ.
I mean, y'all know how my week goes. It's obviously rough. Look at me. I don't never come on here looking like this. But,
Okay.
school is doing this thing, still making it through it, still powering through, knocking these classes out. Other than that, yeah, allergies, it's that season, it's that time of year. It is what it is. Y'all, I'm glad my divorce is finalized and has been for almost 2 months. So, yes, I can live on with my best life. So, that's one less stressor. Doing the thing. So, moving forward.
Dr. Maya 100. How has your week been?
it's been insightful. I'm having one of those weeks where at every no matter where you go in life, you always got to check yourself at some point when the universe or God or the source or whatever you call it, he, she, him, her, whatever you call the source. When the source is like, "Hey, you doing that, and that's cute, but now it's time to step it up, another level." And so I'm having one of those weeks where it's just like areas in your life that you can perfect. And by the way, for everybody out there, so sorry, y'all, allergies are choosing violence. You know what I'm saying? Uh, you're choosing violence. A lot of people, a lot of us don't realize the kind of the benefit of not the regular nasal washes because they're associated with bacteria, but go and find the ones that are not associated with bacteria, the disposable ones and stuff like that, and doing that every day at the start of your known allergy season. Because if you're having it now, most likely it's every year, right? And not waiting for like the allergies to choose violence. Like go ahead and do some prophylactic and do that usually 2 weeks at the start of it and just staying on it will reduce your allergy symptoms a lot. And then there's other medication, but that's catch up after, after the after the violence has been
Come
chosen.
on. See, I told
DJ.
y'all. Pick
DJ,
the
we gotta
right
have her
one.
on more often. It's called free healthcare because
Right.
right now I'm paying for it. I like the free.
Listen,
Yeah.
it's funny that you should say that. That is really one of her biggest pet peeves is to make sure people understand in real time, in real ways, how to take care of themselves, how to stay
Mhm.
healthy, how to access services, how to be the best version of
I
themselves.
pronounced that
And
real time, but I'm always working on how I say things, and I
Definitely,
might not
because
have it
we
right.
know.
they, even the technology agree with me today, but it's about being the best
Yes.
version of themselves.
I
Come
can't with
on,
Alexa.
Alexa. She my
I
friend.
can't.
She like, go best friend. Alexa like, go best friend.
That's what she
Yes.
So
said.
my week
Mm-hmm.
has been amazing. The Atlanta Falcons finally got rid of Matt Ryan. Woohoo!
Oh,
We might can win a Super Bowl, so I'm excited about that.
Put that
Uh,
light in all caps.
I mean, you don't understand. When I saw that come across my feed, I was at a store. I was like, y'all gotta give me 2 seconds. I had to just get in the full book. I just had to go in. I have finalized my final two, so y'all know I'm gonna have an A, B, and C team because the Falcons has let me down for the last 39 years. I mean, ooh, at least I know how old I am. 39 years.
Oh,
So my B team is between the Denver Broncos and the Dallas Cowboys, and my C team is gonna be the LA Rams because I live in St. Louis. So St. Louis said I can't have a B team as the Rams because they left us. So they gotta be my C
They
team. So it's
did.
between the Cowboys and the Broncos right now.
your brother said cowgirls.
He better watch it. My
You know,
daughter loves
y'all
the
know how Kay
Cowboys.
feel about the Cowboys,
Kay
baby.
gonna go in on him, and he don't want them problems. All right, so it's
And
between
you
them
see,
two. So that's what the final decision will be made at the beginning of preseason. So you guys know my team.
I'm just like you, Terry. I'm being pretty and nodding my head like, yeah,
Y'all gotta get into football. Football is amazing. It is
You
like
can
so.
have it. I'll pass. I'm good. But it's basketball season, and I'm all for that. But
Right, the Atlanta Hawks.
the
How
the
you
fo-
doing?
the foosball, no, I can't get with that.
This is why I don't deal with you people. All right, moving right along.
Here you
It's
go.
time for my favorite, not silly.
Because
It's
you
time for
do
my
that.
favorite topic. Let's get into this say what, because say what is gonna be interesting tonight, y'all. So let's talk about it.
Say what?
Bueno.
I love say what. That's Rakia, isn't it?
Yeah, you know it is.
So we're gonna talk
Let's
about
get into
Slapgate
it.
2022. Everybody's been talking about it. It's been on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, Christian meme. It's been on everybody's talk. Slapgate.
Hashtag Slapgate.
If you didn't know, Will Smith slapped Chris Rock at the Oscars. What y'all think about it? How y'all feel about it?
I'm over it. Like, let's find something else to talk about at this point. He slapped
What was
him.
your initial response of it? Do you think he was justified? Do you think it was too much? Do you think it was what?
I feel like there's more to that because it just seems like he just randomly just. I know I get the joke, I get it, but I feel like there's just a little bit more to that. Maybe there was some conversation had that we don't know about. We just heard that part that he said on stage, but I don't know. I think honestly, my husband probably would have slapped somebody too, but that's neither here nor there. But I'm ready to get over talking. I'm over talking about it.
Yep, that's why I said I was battling that with another topic tonight. But I just said they still talking about it, so we're gonna talk about it. Not periods. Do y'all see our manager?
Yes.
DJ, what was your thought on it?
I'm torn and I'm perplexed, right? Because I look at that through many lenses, right? So I look at that through the lens of a black man, and I look at that through the lens of how society already perceives us to be a certain kind of way, and how there are certain expectations instilled upon us or thrust upon us, right? So if he would not have done something, black women across the world would have dragged him through the mud. But he did do something, and black women across the world are still dragging him through the mud, as well as other individuals, right? And so it just really goes back to highlight, which is why this ties in great to what we're talking about tonight, about the plight of the black man in America, because it's a catch-22. No matter what decision or choice that we make, it's wrong.
Mhm.
And so the unfortunate part about that is it was broadcast through a public sphere. So now the world gets to see that. And people aren't looking at it through the lens of that particular plight. They're looking at it through the lens of this is what it is. And ultimately, my larger issue behind all of that is yes, he did it. Yes, it happened. Yes, it concurred. But what if we took a third of that same energy to apply to do some stuff that's really going on in the world? How much more of an impact will we make?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Like gas, being 3
Yeah.
I
kids,
mean,
2
these
dogs in the
people are
house.
stretching it. They have turned the Encanto song. Don't talk about Bruno. Don't talk about Will.
Yeah.
It's being stretched. Like, oh, let it go already.
Dr. Maya 100. What's your thoughts?
Well, you have to kind of. I think firstly, what I want to honor is that both men have expressed kind of
Mhm.
where the event is for them right now. Both of
Hmm.
them, Will has issued an apology. Uh,
Hmm.
Chris has issued an apology. They asked Chris if he wanted to file charges. He said no. They did walk off that stage together. You know, and one of the things we always have to be careful about, right, is when people have the opportunity, and we got to watch it when people have the opportunity to create division. Where, as far as I'm concerned, when I watched the tape of how they walked off together, there was no division at that point. No
Hmm.
matter what happened, we have to move to a place where we let people live just like we want people to let us live, right? So they have resolved it, and we should too. Now, if we are to unpack, we have to also remember that Chris Rock is exactly the same black man who did a whole docu-series on black women and how important their hair is to them.
Hmm.
So to bring up something after doing a docu series, because obviously it was enough for you to do a whole docu series on Netflix about how important black women's hair is to them, and I forgot what we called it, but
Hair.
he did it, huh? It's
Wasn't
called
it just
hair.
like hair or something like that?
Good
It's
hair,
something
bad hair.
good hair. Yeah,
Good hair,
good
bad
hair.
hair. And how I remember watching it, how black women, to us, our hair is our crown, our glory, all this other stuff. And then to come in a space where you make a comment about someone who has expressed anxiety and frustration over the fact that their hair is not growing like it used to, and is trying to come to a space where they embrace it. When you look from a trauma informed lens, maybe that when you look at it from a trauma informed lens, maybe that wasn't the best topic. And then when you look at the demographic in the room, and the percentage of people that were in that room. Why pick that one? You know what I'm saying? And but if I mean, then and at the same time, I dare not speak on something that those two humans have already resolved. I wish them both the best, and I'll let them walk their journey.
Mm-hmm. It's good.
So for me, I took it from a lens of I took color out of it, right? I'm not the person who used the black card all the time. That's not me. If I use that card, it is 100% there. Like I'm going through a situation with outside of the show. I gotta watch what I say. And 100% it's race backing, right? My color is the reason why I'm going through what I'm going through. But I say that to say that I took race out of it. And for me, you have a woman who poured out her soul on her hair, her crown, which is what it was, and how much she loves and how this is traumatizing for her and how her family's been supportive of her, this and the third. But then I also read Will Smith's book, and he talked about as a child how his father was abusive to his mother. And as a child, he couldn't do anything. So I think when that happened, he tried to laugh it off, but when he kept going, he reached that breaking point. This is where we talked about traumas from your childhood traumas. It reared its ugly head in it. And for me, I thought it was great that he defended his wife's honor, because if you saw her face was like everyone is laughing at my pain. Literally everyone,
Mhm.
because we can say when we're going through something at home, we can say, "Oh, the world is laughing at me," but we don't know it. In that situation, in that moment, she knew everybody in this arena is laughing at my struggle, at my pain, at my hurt. And for me, he was wrong. I never justify violence, but I think it was a breaking point for him that this time I can protect my wife. I couldn't protect my mom, but I can protect my wife. And personally, I've been in that situation where someone from the pulpit was talking about somebody who I love. I was ready to lay down my collar. Hear me clearly. I'm a saved, sanctified, Holy Ghost filled, fire baptized pastor. But when they came for my people I love, screw what you heard. These hands still work. I had to be carried out of the church because I was going to go in the pulpit and whoop butt. I caught myself
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
I was that. But you don't understand when it's somebody who you care about and who you truly love. Everything else goes out the door. You could care less about a doctor in front of your name. You can care less about a contract you may lose. All you're focused on is the love you have for this person. And I had a lady on my feed go off on me. It was like, what man would hit another man for a woman? Apparently, you don't know what love is, sweetie. Because if I say something about my grandmama, I promise you, I was doing my dissertation defense. My professor, well, one of the professors sent on my committee, my defense committee kept saying, "So your grandmother, so your grandmother." I said, "Women, you keep saying you got one more your grandmother," and I'm gonna tell them they can keep this piece of paper, but I'm gonna show you what my grandmama would do if she was in this room right now. You see what I'm
Amen.
saying? I think people have to understand when you get to a breaking point, you fight and defend those you love if it's true love. And for the men, because me and my cousin was going in and he was like, he was wrong. I'm not saying he was right. Do I think it was partially staged? Potentially, you know? But at the same time, I step aside, like you said, Doc. They both have put out apologies to each other. They moved on. LAPD said nobody wants to file charges. Jada said it's time for healing, and we will discuss this at the Red Table Talk. Chris has been given an invitation to come to the Red Table so they can hash it out. At this moment, I think we need to just accept it happened because people say if it didn't happen, we wouldn't be talking about it. Okay, if Trump wasn't president, we wouldn't be talking about it, would we? Right. So I think we've acknowledged it. It's time to move on and talk about other good things. Like the state of Florida, that has always made bad decisions, finally made a good decision and signed a bill for Financial Literacy Act that the children got to take a class on financial literacy before they can graduate. He may have said they can't be gay,
Mhm.
but he said they got to be educated on their
Right.
finances. So congratulations, Florida, for doing one thing right. One thing in the bazillion things you've done wrong. One thing right.
Wait, I just want to go back to before we move on. I'm gonna let you say that, but before we move on, I just want to go back to. So, from what I understand about what you said, about the pulpit experiences. Your gift is the laying of hands, and it's up to them how you lay them. They can
Huh?
heal. Yes.
Come on, Dr. Green.
But what they will do is correct. You know what I'm
Come
saying?
on.
Come
Bring
through.
Come
balance
on.
and alignments.
Come
However,
come
your gift
I
is
like
laying
that.
hands. They get to choose
Uh-huh.
how those hands are laid.
They
Yeah.
do.
Okay, now I'm clear. I didn't know you
We finna
before,
pass this
but
we're passing this in
now,
collection plate because you just
now
preached a
I
powerful
understand
message.
your gift, and it comes without repentance. So it just,
Huh?
it just flows. It just flows. And some people bring the gifts out of you.
That
They
part.
stir up your gifts.
Yes.
They stirred up your gifts and manifested that. And it was up to them. I just want to say that.
Oh God.
Hey,
Oh, you done
Billy,
brought tears
what's
to my
going
eyes.
on?
Oh, doctor, you
Billy.
done brought tears to my eyes. Oh, I'm so using that.
Clipping it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm sorry. I need a moment. All right, guys. We'll be back after this quick commercial break with our main topic. It's about to get real. Y'all know we have fun topics, we have serious topics, and we have real life topics. I think this is a real life serious topic. Of course, you know who's bringing us this topic. It's our Department of System and Processes. So we'll be right back after this quick commercial break.
I'm geeking out about the charm coming back and replacing the new sister, and it's still not a good show.
Damn.
Still not good. Damn it.
My gosh.
I signed a petition on Saturday about bring back the original charm. Jermaine is slain.
He's in
Jermaine
the
is
spirit. In the spirit. Golly. Oh, man. I guess because I've only seen part of the second season. I watched the first season. I enjoyed the first season. Look, it's really hard to keep up with stuff right now because I don't really pay the CW no mind no more.
All right.
It is our production company, Ricky Z Media. If you have a show topic, a show idea, if you want to start a podcast, launch a podcast, Ricky Z Media is where you want to go. She handles all advertising, production, everything you name. She got you covered from the outside, inside, legal standpoint. She's everything, and she keeps us on topic on the show because we start going down rabbit holes, and she'll bring us right.
No, y'all start going down rabbit holes. The kid be on target.
Whatever. This
Yeah,
season, I
I
haven't
said
gotten
what
into
I
it this
said.
season.
I said what I said. Yes, I said what I said.
We have company, and we have a sanctified company with us today. We're not gonna get into that. We'll have these conversations when company go home. You don't act up when we got company.
Y'all better act right.
See,
Y'all better act right.
see.
Y'all better act right.
For the record, DJ got us in trouble.
Listen,
All right, DJ.
I have no idea what you speak of.
That's what
Y'all to
all
make
the
them
bad
come off
children say.
mute. See?
Come on, no cool
They're
tangent.
doing too much. They got to come off mute. They're like, no, I got to come off.
All right,
DJ,
people. So
take
we're
it
gonna
away,
get
sir.
right into it. I got you. We're gonna get right into it. So tonight we're gonna talk about some heavy things. So we're gonna talk about some things that I kind of alluded to in my say what segment. So tonight we're gonna talk about what is Black culture and its connection to critical race theory. Disclaimer: these are our thoughts, our ideas, our opinions, our perspectives. They are how we feel, what we interpret, and what we're seeing through the lens of people of color. So please just know ahead of time that's where we're coming from. It is not to offend. It is not to isolate. It's not to ostracize, but it is to inform. And y'all know me. My job is always in this place is to be able to make sure that we understand things with the nitty gritty. So I'm gonna start off a little light, and then we're gonna build up into it. So let's pick y'all brains a little bit. I don't want to get right into what is critical race theory. I want to start with what is Black culture. What does it mean to you?
So when I think about Black culture, I think about like the fashion or the music or, what we're doing to our hair or, like a trend. Like, what trend are we following?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so yes, that's definitely a part of it, but you're talking about Black culture. Mm-hmm. So yes, okay.
So if Terry's talking about Black culture, I'm gonna talk about Black culture. Um,
No, and I'm gonna tell you why I did that once I get your perspective.
well, that's why I use three because she's two, so I'm three. For me, Black culture is our influence on the greater of the world. I'm not gonna say the United States, but the greater of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Come on now.
Yes,
That's it.
Dr.
Oh,
Green.
that's it. I was like, break it down. Come on, because I was gonna say Black culture is American culture. It's global culture. It's to me. Oh, this is okay. You did Black culture. You did Black culture. This is Black culture. So to me, it is American. It's global culture. It is the uh, traditions and trends and dynamic that's hosted primarily by people of African descent that are in America. That are people that are descendants. No, yeah. If we're talking about Black people that are descendants, our ancestry involved, not as the end all be all, but in our lineage were people that were enslaved, not slaves, but people that were enslaved. That's generally appropriated to other cultures for financial, spiritual, just human benefits, right? To me, that's Black culture, and I mean people that are communities that are heavily uh, predominantly African American, because as Denzel said, and I don't know where the clip is, color is not culture. They not the same thing, right? So I'm talking about the culture and the traditions that come out of predominantly African American communities, the vibrancy, the spirituality, the just swag and the snapback that we got, and that often gets misappropriated to other cultures for financial benefit.
All right, Dr. Green, thank you for bringing that home because those are my talking points. So now I see how y'all feel. But yeah, no, that's definitely it. And the reason that I started out with Black culture, right, is because we have interest and we get involved in culture and community and things taught us about what it means to be Black by people that are not Black. And then they in turn create these systems, these processes, and we have to navigate through what does that mean to be Black. And then it makes us question our own Blackness, right? Because
Mhm.
we don't think that we're Black enough, right? Or that what we feel are ideal or centered of what Blackness is, we don't meet that standard because somebody that is not Black has told us we're not Black enough. And
Mm.
they use those things to profit off of our Blackness to make money.
Mhm. Mhm.
So what y'all thinking? How y'all feeling about that so far?
It's true.
Agreed.
I mean, it's football.
Very true.
It's football, right?
Right, it's football. Like all the football players, they know that the African American players are going to be your powerful players. Those are going to be your hard hitters. Are going to be your money makers. That's who people going to come into the
Mhm.
stands to see. But you have some football franchise owners who don't like Black people. However, I pay you to make me billions, but I don't deal with you people. I work with a member of the KKK who we was loading up his truck and let down the seat. There's his road. So I mean, truths.
But
Wow.
did you lay hands though?
Not
Doc, let me tell you.
Did you lay
the
hands
the
though? This
Lord,
is what we
I had
need.
on my work shirt. I was in
Mhm.
uniform. The Lord said,
Uh-huh.
"Hold your peace,"
And that he said, hold it. The Lord
and
said,
I let
hold
him.
it.
I'm letting him fight that battle. But
Mm,
my
mm,
statement to him was, while I'm in this uniform, we
mm-hmm,
co-workers.
mm-hmm.
Catch me outside. How about that?
Catch you out. I ain't mad at you. Shoot, Jesus overturned temples. Ain't no shame. Do what you got to
Come
do.
through.
hear me
Let
good.
him in. Come on, Peter. Cut the ear off. Just cut it off. Just forget it.
How
Just
you
forget
doing?
it. You look wrong. You ain't got no ear now. Just instantly. Ask Jesus to put it back on. All right, but yeah, I totally agree. It is football. It's also science. It's also
Hmm.
Henrietta Lacks using of body
Uh,
parts and her cells to benefit
mhm.
financially billions of dollars is also science. So
Hmm.
agreed.
And that's a great segue into my next point about by the time that Black culture is being used by a product, an idea, or a system, it has already been reappropriated and reinterpreted by white people.
Facts.
So how do y'all feel about that? How do y'all feel about the reappropriation?
I mean, since Doc already done brought it at me, the whole Bible has been whitewashed. Greek mythology has been whitewashed. Um, African American history in the United States has been whitewashed. So, for me, I think this is the way. Um, I think this is the way to control us because we're now thinkers. They realize that we know how to. I know how to go to DJ if I don't know something, or like DJ wanted more information, so he went to Dr. Maya. Or I know how to go to Arteria if I need certain things. You see what I'm saying? I know how to connect, make a connection, create a network. And they realize that when we create a network, we create a net, right? The base of that word is net. If we cast that net, when we cast it, we can pull in a lot more people. And if we start pulling in enough people, they realize the system they've created, we can debunk it, we can destroy it. And so they are using what we hold dear. African Americans hold their religion to their heart, like families.
Mm-hmm.
By whitewashing it, we are being conditioned. Our music is whitewashed, but we're conditioned to follow the music, right? So I think that's, I mean, I agree, DJ, that it ticks me off. I took African American studies in undergrad, right? I went to a classroom filled predominantly African Americans. My professor walked in. He was a white man. When I say white man, he was white, right? I was like, so all of us were like, how he gonna teach us our history, right? So he wrote on the board and he said, if we got this question right, we passed his class. We didn't have to come back. We didn't have to take a final. He was gonna give us 100. Bet. Let's go. Who was the first woman not to give up her seat on the bus? And we had to write on a piece of paper and put on his desk. When I tell you, it was so much confidence when I slammed that paper on that desk, chest out, I was like, bam, easiest A I ever got in life. And he just read them off. Rosa Parks, wrong. Rosa Parks, wrong. Rosa Parks, wrong. And I was like, and we got upset. How you gonna tell us? We know it was Rosa Parks because Martin Luther King. And he was like, broke out the book and went to laying it out. And at that moment, I was like, are you effing serious? That's when I knew my own history had been whitewashed. When I went to the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Alabama, I called Terry because I was like, so what we've been taught, how John Lewis and Martin Luther King marched across this bridge and they were hosed and dogs were so, that didn't happen.
They weren't.
That happened to the group that went before them that tried to do the march and was blocked. But then when the government got involved, the other group came and did the march with protection. That shocked me because it's like the people who we've idolized, and I'm not taking away from their stature because we appreciate what they hold, but at the same time, we need to know the truth. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say no, that's good because I was gonna say, but you know how I feel about Martin Luther King. That's a whole nother conversation.
We know how you feel about Michael.
Show topic. So Martin, because that was his name. So let's start there. Michael, because his name is Michael, but that's a whole other thing. Terry, what you got?
Ooh, honey, y'all deep. You know, I'm trying to veer away from these topics like this. Yes. I completely agree. Everything is whitewashed. Like our fashion is whitewashed. You know, now we got the white girls wearing the lace fronts and you know the braids and the wigs, and so yeah, it's just it's out of hand. It's crazy, but I don't know. It's just it's deep. It's really deep. Stuff like this kind of pisses me off a little bit. So yeah, that's why I try to remain.
Tell us about why you pissed off, because this is the stuff that people need to hear, right? And this is why we have this platform. This is why we utilize this space to have these conversations, because trust me, somebody else in the world feels exactly the same way you do.
And I think it pisses me off the most because I have 2 teenage daughters. So I'm trying to teach them, well, I'm trying to unteach them the stuff that they learned in school, the wrong stuff. So my Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, I'm trying to teach them the right stuff about it. But we got the schools drilling in their head the wrong information. So it's confusing my children. And so it's like, So now I'm going and, back and forth with my kids because they're like, well, mommy, they taught us this in school. I'm like, it's wrong. But knowing in the back of my mind, that's the exact same thing I learned years ago. So it's like, how can I argue with them, or how can I sit and say, hey, well, this is supposed to be this way, or this supposed to be that way, when I learned it the same way they did? I'm just trying to correct what somebody that went to school to be a teacher to do. So it irks me.
Dr. Green, you want to weigh in?
It's deep. We'll get into, I have this thing I call 1776 syndrome. And it takes us back to the signing of the Declaration of Independence, when they say, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their creator with unalienable rights, which include life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But also looking at the pictures of who was around that table, right? And the people around the table, let's be clear, were the people that they were considered to be the men, right? Period. That were created equal, right? One race, one gender, one proclaimed sexual orientation, one one socioeconomic status, right? One religion, right? That's because they weren't talking about anybody on this call, right? And most people are not listening right now. They weren't talking about me when they wrote that. Right. And then, so what we're talking about, whitewashing, is we say, oh, that was bad. And then coming to the realization that every 4 years in this country, except for 2 times, shout out Barack Obama, but except for 2 times, we as a collective nation, Black, white, Asian, whatever we want to call ourselves, have recreated that syndrome where we choose every 4 years that same gender, race, socioeconomic, sexual orientation, some sort of Christian, some sort of religion to lead us. We look around and we say, you look like the person that we need to lead this country. We do it as a nation, right? Because if you look at numbers, there's no way that white people are still the majority in this nation. No, they just not. Let's just unpack that. They just not. I don't care if they still want to call, we're minoritized communities. We're not actually minority. You know what I'm saying? And so, but we choose. We vote. We choose every 4 years. And so that's another level of whitewashing and things like that. Whitewashing, I'll just throw this out here since we brought it up, and I'll put it back. Whitewashing is why we consider when black men irritate, or they talking to the police, be quiet, keep your hands attended to, don't say nothing to irritate them, da, 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 da. And if they do something, we're like, well, they should have known to not do that. They should have known that they were on that path to be arrested, to do all that other stuff, right? But nobody thinks Chris Rock should have been quiet, keep his hands at 10 and 2, blah, 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 blah. Most of the time it's not the police's fault. Last night it was Will's fault. Move on.
Yes. So great segue into my next point. What if I told y'all that Black culture is multiracial and multicultural? Do you agree?
Say it one more time.
Black culture is multiracial and multicultural. Do you agree or disagree? We can't hear you, Doc. You muted.
Watch this, Patty. Oh, Doc, you was talking. Go ahead. Doc, you was talking. Go ahead.
You don't know how to come off mute. Oh, there we go.
And we still can't hear you.
It's still not working, Doc. Well, why are you doing that? Watch this, Patty. That makes sense, since the Bible and genetics say that everybody is a descendant of. So I get where you're going. It makes sense.
Can y'all hear me now?
Yes.
I was in that same vein with you. Because my thing is, if we all quote unquote say we all go back, and I'm just going to use this because this is what they say, to Adam and Eve. If Adam and Eve created all the black, white, yellow, purple, orange, and green people, then our culture is multiracial. It embodies everything and everybody.
You're right. Black culture is everything. That's what I got out of that.
Arteria?
Y'all just taught me something. Keep going.
You don't got nothing to add? You don't think? Do you think it is? Do you think it's not?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay,
I can't even answer that.
fair enough. So based off of what we just brought up, and based off of what I'm introducing to you, is it safe to juxtapose that it is difficult to define what is authentically black?
Yeah, it is.
So then, how can we have a conversation about what black culture is if we can't identify what is authentically black?
I think we can identify with it, what is authentically black. Will we accept what we identify as authentically black? Is my question.
Now, utilizing that same logic,
Hmm.
and we just said that black culture is multiracial. We
Hmm.
said black culture is multicultural.
Hmm.
We said that there is black culture and there's black culture. So we
Hmm.
talked about different facets of what this larger schemata is, right? We talked
Hmm.
about all of these breakdowns of these things,
Hmm.
and you still feel like there is something that is solely black.
Yep.
Okay.
Want me to break it down for you,
If you
Dr.
like,
DJ?
I'm doing this for a reason because I'm setting this
Because
up as a transition into critical race theory,
I'm
and
gonna
so
take all of
all of
this.
these are very integral components of the conversation that we're about to have.
What do I think is authentically black? Everything you see is authentically black because it came from us. That's why I said I can tell you what's authentically black, but are they willing to accept what is authentically black? Because if we are the
Hmm.
beginning of the creation, then everything is authentically us, right? If I make a
Hmm.
salad, that salad is authentically whatever lettuce I use. Whatever I add to it, it's still that salad is still lettuce. You see what I'm saying? So we created this, whatever they add to it. You can add all the stuff you want to add, but if you get down to the base, Sigma, get down to the base of it, it all comes back to us. And if you want me to use their theology against them, it goes back to Adam and Eve. If everything came from Adam and Adam and Eve was the African American people, because it has been proven that African American correction, Africans can create every race out there, then that means everything came from them. So all y'all educate, all the technology, Africans, all the music, Africans, all the fashion, Africans, everything comes back to us. So everything is authentically black.
Now that you broke it down like that, I see why you say that.
I did my homework, Dr. DJ.
Now, I do find interest in the fact that we talked about black culture, and black culture,
Hmm.
because all of them are black culture, right? It is,
Hmm.
and but when you start to break down what the construct of, or where the word black came from, or white, or where these constructs came from, they were made up because we're all human, right? So they were made
Hmm.
up. So at the same time, you all, I feel strongly that somebody made up that I can wear a coat. You know what I'm saying? I don't think coats were a thing before. Somebody made up, but you see this one, I'm still gonna make it fabulous. You know what I'm saying? You can make up that I'm black, but watch me do
Hmm.
me, you know,
Hmm.
and you can put a label on my body, so that you can utilize it, abuse it, do all these things to it. I'm still going to let my spirit shine, whatever body I'm in. And whether I choose to take on, for instance, I'm a person that identifies in a lot of different spaces, and is at the root of it not really based in gender. A lot of times,
Hmm.
I'll be like, hey, I'm a black woman, or people will look at me and say, hey, that's a black woman. I don't get mad. Or somebody uses a pronoun she all the time. I don't get mad, because guess what? That's one of the ways I identify, and it doesn't bother me. I'm still going to do me no
Hmm.
matter where I am. You know what I'm saying? I'm still going to be, me no matter where I am. So you can call me whatever you want. Um, Two things is, I manifest that when I identify as it, and nothing else anybody else tries to label me as can manifest upon me, except that I take it on and receive it. So
Hmm.
I'm glad you think that way, because a lot of people don't think that way. A lot of people allow other people to label them, and they follow that label that somebody else has put on them.
mhm,
Hmm.
that's true.
And I mean, that's exactly the point in this conversation that we're going to dive into this evening, right, is that labels, constructs, societal images, things that are not of the natural world, we have allowed to take form, fashion, and dictate every facet of how we move and we operate through
Mhm.
our very existence. From the way that we think about ourselves, the way we think about our familial units, the way that we think about the world, right? And we internalize and then we regurgitate those very same things into existence. So I'm going to trickle along right on into. So thank you, Dr. Green. That was a great segue into the larger topic of critical race theory. And so I wanted to start there because it was important to have that conversation about, what is Black culture, right? Because as we talk about these things and we talk about constructs, that's an integral component of critical race theory. And I'm about to get y'all into that. So, what do y'all think that means? Have you heard of the term before? Have you heard of it? Do you know what it means? Or what's your thoughts? I know you know Dr. Green, so I'm going to ask Doc and Arteria.
So for me, I've never had this conversation. I've never really, heard of it this way. So this is new to me. Critical race theory. So
Okay.
Repeat the question.
So I'm just saying, are you familiar with the term? Are you familiar with the concept? When you hear the words, what does it mean to you? What are the things that stick out to you?
Can you give me the origin of the word?
I can. It was
I'm
derived and
joking. No, I
developed
was
in the
joking.
1970s.
I forgot who I was talking to. Jesus Christ! Why I was trying to be like in the spelling
in the
bee.
spelling bee.
um,
Can you use it in a sentence, please?
right. I have heard of critical race theory. Um, I'll be honest with you. It was a class that was offered that I completely avoided because I didn't want to.
Hmm.
I didn't want to take it. I'm just gonna be
Mhm.
honest. Because I was like, it's yeah. So I have heard of it.
Okay, so then let's break down these parts. Critical,
911.
or what? What's another word for critical? Or
Serious.
another set of words for critical?
Serious.
What else? But
Um,
heightened. What's more heightened than serious?
why do I feel like I'm at a Senate congressional hearing? I'm not trying to get set up. Um, one moment.
So
Oh,
urgent, immediate,
oh,
expedient, those kind of things, right? The urgency behind it, right? Because choosing the word critical was intentional. Diction, and we got to think about that too. Word choice and diction is intentional, especially in this lens. That was an intentional choice. So it's about urgency. Yes, thank you, Ricky. It needs immediate attention. Race. Do we need to? Yeah, we're going to unpack that. Race.
Whew.
It's no right or wrong answers. We're doing this for a reason. Because now we're going to get into the heavier parts of this stuff, the more theoretical frameworks, the more logistical things. So I want to start in this unpacking stage so that not only for you all, but for our viewers, that they can follow the conversation. What do you think? Yeah, thank you, Ricky. And what's a theory in its most simplest form? When you hear the word theory, what do you think about?
Like a thought process.
Or what else? Or simplify that. What is the one single word that sums that up?
Imagine making me think.
And you know what? Whole exactly what you said. Because when at the end of it, I'm mad you making me think. Is the whole? That's the whole. Some of
Thank
this.
you for cheating, Doc.
I utilize my resources. Okay, don't judge me. I was taught to utilize my. I asked my best friend,
So a
and my best friend
theory.
told me.
So
Phone
a,
a friend.
so a theory is just an idea, right? It's a summation, amalgamation of ideas, thoughts, principles. That's all it is. It's just an idea that you test out, right? It's ultimately that's it. This is an idea that I believe strongly in that I'm going to test out, right? So we then broke down the critical facets of what it is. So it was derived during the mid 1970s. Why is that significant? What happened during that time? So what was going on in that era, more or less? not just specifically the 70s, but even thinking about before the 70s, so thinking about the 60s, thinking of what 70s
That was the civil rights movements.
and the fallout thereafter, right? All
Right.
of those things that transpired thereafter, which in another lens we would say is post reconstructionism, but that's a whole nother school of thought. But ultimately it's the same kind of ideals, right? That there's a set of beliefs, a set of standards that were related to race and how races should interact, intertwine. Now we're challenging that thought, right? Post civil rights movement. Okay. Is based out of critical legal studies and radical feminism. Why is the fact that feminism is a part of that integral? Or what do you know about feminism in general?
Women ain't supposed to have a voice. They supposed to be seen and not heard. They only supposed to talk when spoken to by their husbands. They supposed to cook and clean and take care of house and not have no jobs. They can't have no position higher than a man because the Bible says a woman can't be over the man and she can't be president. That's
That's
what they say.
patriarchy. I'm talking about feminism.
Oh, I was just letting you have about the female. That's what they said.
But yes, that is the patriarchal standpoint. But I'm talking about feminism. Why is it critical that feminism is a part of that conversation?
Because they weren't equal.
Hmm. What about that?
They were seen as less than.
Yeah, come on, let's connect the dots. So we got that, and we're talking about race. Why are those two connected? Why would it make sense to connect two marginalized communities or what's perceived as two marginalized communities?
Because the more we connect, the bigger we get. We making that net again.
Hmm.
And I think
Yes.
also because when you add in the female aspect of it, the female aspect included our counterparts, where
Which
civil rights was more so just for African Americans. But when you start talking about female rights, now you're starting talking about the black female, white female, predominantly the white female. And so when the white women want rights, they're gonna jump on board with the civil rights.
well, and then I also don't want you or anybody else to forget. This is also during the time that sexual liberation and sexual liberation movements and sexual identity started to shift. And as we knew, to be certain and to be still, what you got, Rakia?
I gotta hop in because no,
Okay.
I mean because like you're saying, like we have the Civil Rights Act that's happened in the '60s. We have the feminism that we see that we know of today is starting around this
Hmm.
time too, because you're talking about workplace discrimination due to gender. Um, Not only like workplaces, the women's discrimination in the workplace, but also you also start seeing disability laws come out during this time too.
Hmm.
It's a lot of human rights happening in the '60s and '70s. Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
No, thanks, Rakia. That's dope. You're right on target. But also to get back to my point about gender identity and gender expression, as we know, and some of us may or may not know, people who are non-heterosexual identifying are always at the lead in the forefront of any major movement. The
Stonewall
civil
riots.
rights movement was no different. The
Yeah.
sexual liberation movement was no different. It is always people, primarily people of color, and people that do not identify as something heterosexual. So
Mhm.
again, to the fact that these are all marginalized or what are perceived as marginalized communities and populations coming together to stand for something is huge. Dr. Green, what you got before I move forward? Because it's in your face.
Yeah. So they all really social constructs, right? They're all really made up concepts that a group of people who want to hold on to a socialized idea of power come up with to keep themselves in power and oppress other people. The idea that women have to do a certain thing, social construct. The idea that black, brown, the idea that you hear in some spaces and most of us heard in school when we grow up, here's the jobs you can do, here's the jobs you can't. That's a social construct. And then after we kind of look at it over time, kind of, come on, Marsha P. Johnson, come on, Harriet Tubman. We look every time there's a liberation of any kind. There's always someone that challenged a social construct. I'm talking about Harriet Tubman deciding that she will free people. Not only is she gonna get free, she gonna keep going back and freeing other people. And she's going to, in a lot of spaces, wear male clothing
Mm. Come on, because
and
that's an
carry a
integral piece.
gun, which women were not allowed to do. Yeah.
Speaking of Miss Tubman, people don't realize she actually dressed as a male, took over a Confederate ship and
Mm-hmm.
sailed that ship,
Yep.
giving
Yep.
the male signals into the Confederate zone, loaded it
Mm-hmm.
up full of people, and
Mm-hmm.
brought them back to freedom.
Hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yes, sorry, I like Harry.
No, this is all why we having this conversation, right? Because it unpacks so many other layers of identity, so many other layers of expression that are suppressed. And we focus on the part about race, but it's larger than that. So anyway, what does critical race theory do? So the first thing it does is it draws upon the paradigms of intersectionality. I know y'all like, what the hell did I just say, right?
Kimberly Crenshaw.
No, I
You know,
heard
I
it.
love me some Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw. That's my girl. We talked about intersectionality on season one. That was my first opening show. And I talked about how all of the facets of our identity intersect and impact upon us and our being, and how those all are impacted by social constructs, perception, and the endowed or ideal of power or the lack thereof, right? So we ain't going to go too deep in that, but that's ultimately what that thing is. The second thing it does is it recognizes that race and racism work in concert with and through gender, ethnicity, class, and or sexuality. So we talked a whole lot about that. So again, y'all see why we were having the questions and having the conversations before the conversation. The third thing that it does is it integrates lived experience through racial realism. Right? We talked a lot about that. We're not going to go back down that path at this moment. The last thing, well, the second to last thing is it understands how American racism has shaped public policy. And y'all know that's my niche, right? I focus solely on the liberal, the institutionalized and systemic forms of racism and how they impact public policy. And it goes back to what Dr. Green spoke of early in the conversation about us making this choice to continue to be in these oppressed modes or models, right? The last thing is, and this part I thought was very interesting because this is through a counterintuitive lens, is that they say that critical race theory is a divisive discourse that pits people of color against white people. What y'all think about that?
Woo.
A divisive discourse that pits people of color against white people.
So the for me, the issues that come up with critical race theory also talks about our idea of what it means to be liberal and liberalism.
Hmm.
The For me, uh, a concept that I recently kind of, just like I made up 1776 syndrome, super citizens, right? Uh, the problem when we become super citizens is we inherently find flaws with anything that another construct of critical racism says. That word critical means we have to take an objective look at the laws, look at social constructs, and objectively, without kind of any background bias, just look at how they've impacted things over the years and how they impact society and in different ways. And we cannot, because um, we are liberal. I say this all the time. I'm a member of the LGBTQ community. Shout out to us.
Ow!
also,
Shout out
also,
to
one thing
us.
I always hold is, we of the LGBTQ community can't think we got the market cornered on discrimination just because we gay. We might be gay and racist, and that's what critical race theory takes a
Uh
look
huh.
at. Like, okay, you call yourself a liberal, but let's just kind of unpack this stuff. And so, what you were talking about is like with super citizens, like we have, like, think about a gay person that's in politics or liberty, wanting to hold certain laws and also being extra worried when or uncomfortable when we start talking about race and race in America and what it has done and is doing to Black and brown people. You see, critical race theory, to me, you see how weird and uncomfortable people get in the room when a person of color brings up racism, they get uncomfortable. Even if you are at work or at school, if you have meetings every week and you bring it up every week, they uncomfortable with you talking about it every week, not considering how uncomfortable you are living it every day. And so that is the hinge that, kind of people like, oh, we don't want you to talk about it because it's going to pit you against us. No, it pits me against racism. And it should pit you against racism. But since it's not happening, here we are. Yeah.
So I was gonna agree with you. I agree with you, and Billy kind of said as well. I
Hmm.
don't think it pits us against each other. It's making me make you realize the truth. It's making me. It's. I think what it does is it forces you to see what we see every day. It forces you to walk a mile in my shoes, so to speak. And I think the reason why they say it causes discord is because, again, anytime a system has been working for me in my favor and now you want to change that system, that's causing discord. That's wrong. I hate to go back to religion, but this kind of ties into religion. That's how religion works. If you don't want, you know what? Our people don't eat chicken because the Bible says we ain't supposed to eat chicken. So now we non-Christian, we non-chickenologists. Well, in my religion, we don't eat chicken, but we also don't eat biscuits. So now we non-chickenologists plus. That's how it all forms. If you do something that goes against what I think is right, then it's a problem. I agree with what Doc said. Don't talk about it because you talking about it makes me uncomfortable because now I got to realize the truth. And who ain't ready for the truth? Most of people. People can't tell themselves the truth about themselves.
Now, real
That's what
quick.
I was going to say that you said it wants people to walk a mile in my shoes. Not only that, critical race theory challenges people to walk a mile in their own shoes.
Right.
Hmm.
And look at themselves, and it forces people, all of us to acknowledge part in America and wherever it's being talked about, to acknowledge parts of us that we want to pretend don't exist.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that's the problem. I want to pretend it don't exist, and you keep bringing it up.
And that brings me to my point to kind of call these things up, call it thing. But I want to talk to y'all about five important tenets of critical race theory, and I want to introduce it to y'all. And I'm gonna let it marinate, and we're gonna discuss like two of them really quickly. The first being that racism is ordinary and not aberrational. So what does that mean? That ultimately means that we promote a culture of colorblindness and meritocracy, and the two intersected together work to marginalize people of color. The second tenet is the theory of interest convergence. What does that mean? That means that white people will allow and support racial justice or progress to the extent that there is something positive in it for them. The next theory is the social construction thesis. This states that race has been socially constructed and much to the detriment of people of color. The fourth tenet is the idea of storytelling and counter storytelling, which means powerful, persuasive, and explanatory ability to unlearn beliefs that are believed to be true. It is predicated upon the belief that schools are neutral spaces and treat everyone justly. Under the guise of mainstream curricula, certain enclaves of students become marginalized through curriculum and praxis, insensitive and inequitable. The last tenet, and the one that I want to pick y'all brains about, is the notion that whites have been the recipients of civil rights legislation.
Affirmative action.
Hmm.
and
Say
and
more.
how I mean the largest beneficiaries of affirmative action are white women because they're checking the box of we're diverse because we have women and most of them are white women, whether that's
Hmm.
in the higher education or the workplace. um that that's that's my example for that.
Hmm.
Oh,
Terry, what you got?
no.
You got something. What did it make you feel? What are you thinking? What's processing?
Bullshit. Excuse me.
No, and that's okay. Doc.
I'm agreeing with Rakia. I'm not gonna say a name, but I used to work as a part of a multi-billion dollar company. Um, and anybody who knows me knows I'm early to everything. right? If it's a meeting, service, anything, I'm early. And I logged into a meeting early, and a conversation was being had by some junior executives that, oh, he's laying off all these people, but he's still promoting all these niggers.
Mm.
And so my thought was, I know, like, hell, I didn't just hear the word I think I heard.
Lay hands. Time to lay hands.
And so I was like, I know I didn't hear that word. And then he was like, yeah, ain't none of the pretty girls getting. I mean, it really was this. And I was like, and they said it again. And that's when I was like, at this point, I know this company every company has it, right? Let's just be real about it. But for me, that's when I realized affirmative action was not for us. Affirmative action was for us. It was kind of like the Emancipation Proclamation. It did absolutely nothing for us, but they said it did something for us.
Hmm.
And they made us to believe it did something for us, but it didn't do a darn thing for us. It still benefited them.
And the larger context is the one that I touched on in the earlier tenets about schools and separation, right? And segregation. It's just a different type of segregation. It's just not de facto separation. It's de jure segregation now. And I know y'all like, what does that mean? When we look at the makeup of our schools and we look at the makeup of those contexts in those areas, and we look at funding, right? Because that's all racially divided and racially driven as well. We look at the context of the content of curriculum, which I talked about, how it's made to be insensitive and inferior so that people of color typically are not drawn to be able to be successful in those systems. So it's all tied together through the lens of, again, how all of these things impact us, keep us in a position of being disempowered, disabled, and what is perceived as marginalized. Well, in some instances, in fact, it actually is a form of marginalization. But ultimately, it's about that lack thereof and the role that race plays in all of these things, which is one of my favorite authors, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. Shout out to her in the Cress and Cress Welsing color theory. She breaks down the most minute things that you don't think about and draws a connection to even their very racist nature and how they are formed. Like in the game of billiards, the white ball is the one that hits every ball of color. But if you sink the eight ball in first, you lose. Why? Because the eight ball is black. And so there are all of these different things, that she brings to light in her coloration being. So if you have not read it, shout out to her, Count Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. Read the ISIS papers. It will change your life. I promise you it will. Um, and there's so much more that I want to get to in this, and I know we're running out of time. So we are going to wrap up, and we're going to go right into final thoughts. But we're going to take a quick commercial break first, I believe, and then we'll come right back with our final thoughts. All right, y'all seen it again. You heard it. Ricky Z social media. We actually have the privilege of having our production manager on with us on this evening, participating in the conversation. So let's get right into it. Let's wrap this thing up and bring it home, guys. What are your final thoughts around Black culture and critical race theory?
So I'm not sure if everybody could hear DJ because on my end he was breaking up really, really bad. He just said this wraps up our talk about critical race theories. What's everyone's final thought on it? Um, Dr. Maya 100, you're our guest, so you always get to go first. What's your thoughts on our final thoughts?
My thoughts are that
So,
critical race theory is not only part of Black culture; it's a part of every culture. One of the tenets that critical race theory, one not tenets, but one of the things that race theory tries to address is that it's not upon people who identify as Black to unpack this centuries long, problem of racism. It's not upon me to come into my workplace and explain to everybody what it is. It's upon all of us, and inherently my not people who are not people of color to unpack their own stuff. Right? We've been holding our stuff and everybody else's stuff forever. And so it's like, hey, let's all look at this. This is also your problem. It's not just Black people's problems or Latin people's, it's white people's problem too. And it is to the detriment, racism is to the detriment of us all, because there's no way, people look down the road and say, oh, there's no way we don't all suffer. If we go back to the origins and the fact that we're all human, there's no way we don't all in the end somehow suffer with some kind of toxic sickness. And for me, a healthcare provider who just wants to provide care to the community, we all suffer when there's racism, right? Because we all miss out on opportunities to, for example, in a situation, I'm a family medicine doctor, but I have specialty in serving people living with HIV. And there's no way when we don't invite all communities to the table and we just kind of apply 1776 syndrome and have white men at the leadership of medical institutions, pharmaceutical institutions, things like that. There's no way we don't all suffer and miss the opportunity to fulfill our purpose.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how else you're supposed to go after that. I don't
I
know.
was like,
okay, bye y'all. Bye y'all. That's all I can say.
She just spoke for everybody.
I did not. I know we got some brilliance coming through. Yeah.
Making the needed changes.
Anybody else?
So my final thoughts is I wrote everything that Dr. Meyer 100 said. So she kind of read my final thoughts. So those were my final thoughts.
How much you gonna use in your next sermon?
Right, because I will use everything you said in the sermon and will not give you credit, because that's what we do.
I
My
want you to
final
go back
thoughts.
and lay hands on that last person. I meant to say your last situation. I meant to be like, but did you lay hands on? I missed my opportunity. Go back and lay hands. Don't lay hands. I want you to stay out of jail. Don't lay.
This is a great. I had to hop on because this has been. I've been really excited to get y'all's take on this topic. So, and as someone that's an educator, it's a hot button issue on whether or not it's being taught in our schools. Sorry, y'all, it is not in the way that y'all are thinking it is. I teach children to keep them hands to themselves and regulate their emotions. That's my job. And then try to teach them their ABCs right afterwards if I can get to that point. So it was this, as far as like what's Black culture, I was thinking more in the lines of like what is Black American culture. But I'm glad that we expounded upon that more. And I'm really glad that you, DJ, really broke it down for what is critical race theory, because no one actually ever talks about this information when it's brought up. So thank you, DJ. And thank you, Dr. Meyer, for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you. Next time, Dr. Meyer go ask for fun.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, because she got us stuck.
I mean, I told y'all, that's why when I knew it was this topic, I knew there was nobody else to have this conversation with us other than Dr. Curry. Like, I already knew what time it was. And I'm not just saying that because she's my friend, but I know the work that she does. I know how invested she is. I know how near and dear to her heart this is. So kudos to that. I'm trying to let Doc loop on in so we can start to wrap up for the evening. Arteria, do you got any closing thoughts just in general as it relates to any of the concepts that we talked about on this evening?
Chill. This was eye-opening for me. It taught me a lot. It helped me to better understand critical race theory because, like I said, I've never heard of it. Like, I've never sat in a room and just being educated on this type of stuff. Like, I didn't take this in school, so I didn't. And history is not my thing, anyways. I like math. So this was really, really good. I really enjoyed this.
I do want to say, why, what we're seeing happen right now with critical race theory is exactly why we didn't learn it in school. It's not the first time. DJ mentioned it coming into play in the 1960s. A lot of this also, a lot of the foundational elements were built off of W.E.B. Du Bois. And you see how I said Du Bois? Du Bois. But and every time it comes up, it gets pushed down, right? And it's part of what I think is the psychopathology of American culture. When things like this happen, we go through the shock, and people say, well, you don't want people to learn about it. We got senators bringing it up on the floor, you know what I'm saying, when the honorable Katanji, is trying to live her best life. We got senators bringing books on the floor, all this stuff, because every time it comes up, there's a reason why now is not the time to talk about the institutional violence against Black and brown bodies, whether it's legalized, socialized, however it is. We talk about legal and social. There's sexual violence against Black and brown bodies, mental violence against Black and brown bodies, all kinds. But it's never time to talk about it because of what DJ said. It's always an uncomfortable topic and things like that, and just not the right time. That's why we never learned about it. But this is not the first time we have tried to address it. I hope we're successful this time around.
Thank you, Dr. Green. That's always, y'all know me. I'm always willing to push the bucket. I'm willing to push the envelope. We have the difficult conversations. So thank you for being a part of this conversation with us. Thank you for hanging out with us. Thank you for bringing some dope perspectives like I knew you would. Thank you for bringing in a whole slew of people. So, y'all, thank y'all for joining us for another episode of No Clue. I know Doc would normally do this, but we are having some signal bandwidth issues. But, we thank you so much for joining us. Follow us on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us and support us on Patreon. Please, please, please. This is not free. We do need you, and we do appreciate your support. Follow us on what's your thing, Arteria?
Christian Mingo.
Yes. Follow us on Twitch. Subscribe and like our YouTube channel. Subscribe and like our Facebook groups. Join in the conversation. Send us messages. Send us an email at nocluetheshow@gmail.com. Send us your thoughts. Give us your feedback. We want to hear from you. Let us know some things that you all would like to hear. When we sit down and do this thing, we try to consider some of the shows that you all want to hear. So talk to us. Give us feedback. I don't know what Doc got going on, but I'm going to keep pushing. Give us your feedback. We want to hear from you. We love y'all. We thank y'all. So that wraps it up for us and for another episode of No Clue. So thank y'all for joining us. We will see y'all in 2 weeks. Not everything, but see y'all in 2 more weeks. And, last but certainly not least, how do we close out every show? Just when you think you thought everything you had life figured out, you realize you have what? No clue. Thank y'all, people. We love y'all. See y'all in 2
Thanks
weeks.
for having me. Peace.